Emma here from the NOIC Godcast, where we offer wacky wisdom weekly. Today we'll be talking about nothing wasted and be focusing on loving while serving. Stay tuned. So I'm going to start off reading in Romans 12. It says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and every one members one of another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given unto us, whether prophecy, let us prophesy, according to the proportion of faith, or ministry, let us wait on our ministering, or he that teacheth, or teaching, or he that exhorteth, on exhortation. He that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth, with diligence. He that showeth mercy, with cheerfulness. So, what do these verses make you guys think about? I know there's a lot there, but...
Go ahead.
Sorry, you.
Well, so we hear Romans 12:1 all the time in sermons, podcasts, and everywhere in between, but do we really apply it to our lives? So when I read this verse, all I can imagine is like a Christian that is so on fire. They're telling everyone about the Lord, and every single aspect of their lives revolves around what the Lord wants. And what he tells him to do. We all want to be like that Christian, but really, how often are we that Christian? Like, it's so easy to just get caught up in everything in life, and then, like, sadly, we don't live that way because we want to live the way that we want to live. And just like we talked last week on the podcast, many times we lose sight that we're living the way that we are living. So yeah, many times we do that without even realizing. So what are some ways that you guys use to continue presenting yourselves as a living sacrifice?
I think that we talked about this a little bit last month, but I think one of the things that we need to undo in our mind is this isn't for the super saints. This isn't the criteria for those totally over-the-top Christians. This is the criteria for a Christian, all Christians. If you know Romans, I love this. Romans 12:1 is one of my favorites. I've talked about it many times. But Paul spends the first 11 chapters of Romans talking about everything Christ did for us.
Yeah.
Now, we're all very quick to accept all that he did for us. But then when Paul pivots and says, okay, because he did this, this is your response.
Yeah.
We're like, no, let me take that. Let me not give this. And yet Paul says, no, because he gave all, you are to present yourself as a living sacrifice. And so again, I think the starting point is that we all have to recognize this applies to me.
Yeah.
I am to present my life as a living sacrifice. I am to give my all. I am to hold nothing back. And so until you make that personal, you're never going to do it. And I think that the church today is filled with people who expect it out of others, anticipate it out of the super saints, but they're like, me and Jesus got this figured out. He's totally fine with me gypping him.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing-ish, but, like, I think of all the things that he's done for me and how undeserving I am of them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how could I, when he asked me to do this little thing, like, how could I say no? You know what I mean? So I just keep in my mind of just, like, so, like, the first few chapters where he does go on about how much he's done for us and what he's done, and then I think of what I've done to deserve that, and it's nothing. So it's then like, well, how could I not just do these things? So just kind of keeping myself in check with who I really am helps me to just be like, why not?
I try really hard to evaluate my life. I mean, I honestly, I pray this every day. I feel like it's one of those prayers where you may not sincerely mean it every day.
Yeah.
And that is something that, don't judge me. That's a very judgy look. I try, like I genuinely want to pray it and mean it every day, but like I feel like it's one of those that you become repetitious and don't necessarily heartfelt.
Yeah.
But I pray all the time, like, Lord, show me any area that's not surrendered of my life. I pray that every single day of my life. But I think like taking the time to, all right, sit still be still, know he's God, and evaluate your life. All right, what about my finances? What about my family? What about my time? What about my home? What about my career? What about my future? What about my ministry? Like thinking through these areas and looking for anywhere there's a tight grip.
Yeah.
If there's any area in your life that's not being lived with open hands, then you are not a living sacrifice. You're withholding something back from him. And he can take things when we're not willing to give them. And so just being aware of anything you're tightly gripping to in life.
Well, I think too, like it comes to putting, like you said, like you have to put yourself aside. Something I've really been working on, like within anything I do within ministry or anything, like God help me to put me aside. Like anytime I go up to sing, I'm like, God, this isn't about me. Help me to put me aside. But it's also not looking at those other people who we think are so on fire. Like I said, like that Christian, it's putting aside, like we can't just look at other people. Our Christianity or our faith, our relationship with Christ is not theirs. And I think that's where it kind of gets all jumbled and mixed in too, because we start looking at how other people are living instead of how God wants us to live. So I want to focus on something that I think it kind of all starts with. So one of my other favorite verses is Matthew 22:37, where it says, to love the Lord with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And this is where it starts, because if we aren't loving the Lord, if we don't have that relationship with the Lord, then how are we ever going to serve him? If we don't love God with all our being, then why are we going to want to serve him with all of our being? So like, just think about it. So you have a coworker, you see him every day, but they mean something to you. Like you care about them to the point that like you would be sad if something happened to them, but like, it's not like you have a relationship with them like your closest friends or your family members. This person isn't something that you would confide in. This isn't somebody that you call on when you're stuck on the side of the road or you get stuck in a ditch.
Hypothetically, of course.
This had never happened before. But so, like, are you going to want to serve that person? Are you going to want to help that person? Like, no, you're not, because they aren't family. They aren't the ones that you love and care about. And it's hard to admit that, like, really hard to admit that, because you want to think that you care about everybody the same, but that it's very true. And that goes for serving the Lord. So if we haven't come to the point where he's like family, that we love him with all of our heart, mind, and our soul, we'll never be able to fully serve him in every single thing that we do. Because like, what does it feel like to serve somebody who you aren't really close to? Many times it feels like a burden. Like, and when I started thinking about this, I was like, that is scary, because we are as guilty of feeling like that person is a burden to feel like God is a burden, and we don't admit it. It's like I said, you don't even realize that you're doing it, but you're almost making him a burden, because we treat him as if he's just that coworker. And I don't want to do that. Like we need to be serving him as a father. We need to love him as a father and want to do every single thing that he wants us to do. But it comes to the point of, if you don't love somebody, if you don't care about them, then how are you ever going to want to serve them?
Right. I think Jesus says it very plainly. He says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Or what you're saying is, if you love me, you'll serve me. It's the same thing, serving commandments. And so I think that is a lot of times, and we're talking about that a lot around here lately. A lot of times we grow up in church and we commands, laws, rules. And we think the good Christians are those who keep those laws and rules. The problem is eventually it becomes so overwhelming to keep those laws and rules that you're not capable of keeping, that you walk away from him because there's no love there enabling you to do those things. We talked last Sunday night here at the church about how Paul in Philippians 3, he tells the Jewish people, you are mutilating your flesh. You are forcing your flesh to serve God without any heart in it. And how many of us modern day Christians are guilty of that? Like we're serving him out of obligation, out of appearances, out of doing what we know we're supposed to, but there's no love in it. Yeah. And I think that the reason, and that's kind of, Rachel just said this, that's what Romans 12, 1 through 11 says, is this is all he's done for you. You should so love him for all he's done for you. And your response is to love him enough to give your life back to him. And that's what Jesus says here. Jesus is quoting the Shema, Deuteronomy 6, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength. Why would anyone do that? Why would you give anybody your heart, soul, mind, and strength? Because of all that they've done for me. And so again, all of our motives as a Christian, it's all love.
Well, I think one of the like crazy things is because even people that aren't Christians recognize that you are supposed to have a relationship with Christ without realizing that. Like, because how many people that I know that I see that are like, oh, God would never accept me. He would never want me because of all that I've done. And the only way that there would be any type of no or yes would be because there is a relationship with Christ there. And as Christians, we definitely should be the ones recognizing that it is a relationship. It's not about, yes, the other things are important, that we need to serve Christ. We need to follow his commandments. But it all starts somewhere, and it all starts with the relationship and how much you love him, how much you should have, like we talked this morning, you should be excited to serve him. You should be excited about going to church. And if those things aren't there, are you truthfully loving God? Are you truthfully wanting to serve him?
I think that, and I'm sure you can relate to this, I think that maybe a real life example, when you're a parent, you love your kid. At least you're supposed to. If you're a good parent, you love your kid. Whenever Juliet comes up to me and, we're eating dinner, we're eating dessert, we're out at a restaurant, wherever we're at, if I have one bite of something left and it's the best thing ever, and she asks for it, I'll probably give it to her. And I'm not saying that's what defines a good parent. That's not what I'm saying. But why would I do that? Because I love that kid. And there's really nothing I wouldn't give that kid. And so, again, it's the same way with God. Why would I give him why would I give him my life? Yeah. Why would I give him my mind? Why would I give him my heart, my soul? Why would I do that? Like, in order to give something, and that's what Paul says here in Romans 12:1, in order to give something, you have to sacrifice it. Like, that means, literal definition of sacrifice is to give it up. Like, give it over, take the loss upon yourself, right? That's what a sacrifice is. And so why would you ever do that? Well, love. I love him. And he loved me enough to purchase my salvation and die for my sins. And so my response is, I love him enough to give him everything, lay it all before him. And what we learned at campus last year, Matthew 6:33, that whenever we do that, whenever we present our lives to him, seek first the kingdom of God, he will add value unto all these things. And so just like, I know I'm mixing so many scriptures and metaphors here all at once, just waiting on cheese balls to come out. Just like Abraham offering up Isaac as a literal living sacrifice, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point this month, if not dibs. But Abraham gives Isaac as a living sacrifice, and yet because he did that because he put God first and offered his literal son, God actually gives Isaac back to Abraham. Yeah. And it's the same with our lives. Like, he will add value to all the things in our lives as long as we give them first to him and present them to him in our lives.
What's funny to me about that is that so Abraham could have been like, no, you can't have Isaac, and kept him. But then God could have still took Isaac, and then it would have just been wasted almost. You know what I mean? So
like imagine the ram, instead of he comes out angry and he charges and kills Isaac right there. Like, that story would have ended so differently. Right. It would not have made a Disney movie, but he's gored by a ram right there in the thicket. But to that point, like, God could have so easily, God didn't need Isaac. God needed Abraham's heart. Right. And so because of his obedience and giving and putting first things first, he got to keep Isaac. Yeah. All these things were added unto Abraham. Yep. Well, you finally talk and I get interrupted. I'm so sorry.
It makes it easier for me. No, you finish.
Just get excited.
I'm good.
No, I
forget. I'm never going to be invited back to this podcast again.
So what are some things that distract you? Oh my goodness. What are some things that distract you from giving your bodies as a living sacrifice?
cheese balls.
Yes. Did you know?
Like obviously time. Like I feel like we just think like with having kids and homeschooling and stuff, like it feels like it's so much harder to make those times to not even just reading and praying, but just like when God's like send that text or do this or do that, like it's just like, oh, hold on a second, you know, and you just keep telling God, hold on a second, and then like eventually he's gonna stop asking you to do it. But I feel like time is probably the hardest thing to deal with. I don't have time.
If anybody can get me some.
So this is maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that probably one of my biggest hangups is like self-inflicted expectations or needs. We at the Ohio Men's Retreat this past weekend, or several weekends ago, at this point, we saw an illustration of someone putting a vice grip on their thumb and squeezing it, and self-inflicting, pressure on their thumb to the point of pain. And the point was made, like the only person who can relieve that pain is the person gripping, the person yourself.
Causing it.
Yeah, the person causing it. And I think that like a lot of times, like the Lord wants me to give him my priorities, my time, my day's agenda, all of these things. And like I always say, I pray that prayer every morning, Lord, let me have your time frame, let me have your agenda, let me surrender everything to you. And yet, but I have to get this done. Right. But I have to do this. But this has to be done today. And so self-inflicted like expectations, demands, tasks that I'm doing for him, like they're all for him. They're for ministry. So it's
almost a priority issue.
Yeah, it really is. It's a priority thing. But it does distract you from giving your life as a living sacrifice. And once you do that one day and it turns into 1 week and 1 month and 1 year, 1 decade, 1 century, like there is no end in sight. And then we end up holding back our lives in his name.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this, I started to think about Lucas and how, like, if he's sick, if he needs help, like, I would literally drop anything and everything to just be there to make it better. Even if I couldn't fix it, I would try to fix it. And, like, I would literally take a bullet for him. And then, like, it made me start thinking about my relationship with the Lord and, like, would I do the same things that I do for Lucas for him? Like, would I do the same things that I would do for Car Grace or for Kaysen or Callan? Because I would literally do anything and everything if they needed me for the Lord. And, like, that really, really, like, goes deep because, like, I know that the Lord should always be before family. But how easy is it just to let them, like, just slip right up there? Like you said, you start one day doing something to just put something before the Lord. It's easy to just, even if it is something for him, if he's having you do something else, like, it's easy to just continue. Like, well, I need to do this first. I need to help this person first. I need to do this first. And, like, sorry. I mean, it's like saying to the Lord, I know that you need me right now. I know that, like, this is something that, like, you're calling me to do, but, like, would it be okay if I, like, presented myself later? Like, that literally is what it's making me think about, because that is what we're doing without knowing that we're doing it. Like, life's busy, life's stressful, but, and I think that it would be best if I stayed in my own little bubble, did what I needed to do right now. Like, how can we say that to the Creator? Like, how can we do that? I was really just thinking the other day, even about, like, with singing and everything, how many times we can know a song and we, like, when we're not the ones up there singing, we can just sit there and sing it. And like the song, Thank You, Jesus, I was singing it the other day and just singing it. And I'm like, am I really singing that to the Lord? Like, do I realize what words that I'm saying right now? I'm thanking the Lord for what I'm doing. We're guilty of doing that in our own life. Like, I'm so thankful for Lucas. He gave me him. But then I'm also going to put him before the Lord. Like, how can we do that? Is that really living for the Lord? And, like, in my mind, I'm like, you can't surely think that you're truthfully serving the Lord, that you're truthfully living for him and loving him with your heart, with your mind, with your soul, if you're actually acting like that. And it's a hard thing for me to grasp, because it's like, I've definitely gotten better since we got married, but when we were first married, like, that was a big transition for me, because I'm like Lucas is like, Emma, you don't have to do everything, and I'm like, but I feel like I do. I need to just fix it. I need to make it better. And it's like, you can't, like, you just can't. And that's where we have to we not only with our like everything else in life, we need to put our family, we need to put our trust in him with ministry, because it does get stressful. And that's like that it's crazy how easy it is for us. Like we could literally be doing something for God. Like you said, we could be serving him. We could be up there singing, but we get so caught up in ourselves that we lose sight of who we're doing it for. Like we're at that point, we're just doing it. Yeah. We're not actually intentionally seeking Christ, serving him, and truthfully presenting ourselves as a living sacrifice. Because if we are loving him with all of our heart, mind, and soul, if we're actually truthfully presenting ourselves to him, we're going to be excited. We're going to want to serve him. Now, is this saying like that literally every day is going to be happy, joyful, 100%? No, like it's not going to be like that. But it's recognizing, like, really, it's the saying how we always say, like, you could read a verse a million times and then you read it again and it's like, wow, like you finally got it in my thick skull. Like I know that I'm doing that. I know that I'm not truthfully seeking Christ the way that I should, because there are things in my life that I know that I'm putting before God.
The verse that comes to mind is that he says this in several places, but Jesus says that if any man come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. But what Jesus says in that text is that anyone who's not willing to do so, they cannot be my disciple. We heard a message recently that, and again, not a new thought at all, but instead of disciple, if we just put a word Christian there, anyone who will not deny themselves, anyone who will not sacrifice their very life, anyone who will not give themselves to the Lord, they cannot be a Christian. In that same text, Jesus goes on to talk about the man who he married a bride, he wanted to go back and have his wife, he bought a land and wanted to go back and evaluate the land, he had all these things he wanted to do, and he prioritized those over following the Lord. And Jesus says, you cannot be a Christian. And I think, like, kind of like we talked last month, when we put that criteria on what it means to be a Christian, it gets scary in a hurry. How many Christians are there? and again, we've been talking about that a lot around here lately, because Jesus says the way is narrow and straight, and few there be that find it. But like, I think in our mind, we're like, few, and he's like, no, few. Because how many people do you really know who are daily living as a sacrifice? They are daily surrendering their lives. They're daily denying self. Jesus goes as far as to say, you should hate your brother and sister, your mother and father, your own life compared to loving me. Yeah. How many people do you actually know that live that way? Like, that is the criteria, not of a super saint. That is the criteria of a Christian.
When you were talking, it just made me think of have you ever been driving and like you get somewhere and you realize like, I've been driving this whole time. You know what I mean? Like you ever looking to the people that like, they're like seeking God, and then suddenly like you wake up, you're like, no, like I need to like really be like seeking God. So like you're driving, you're like, no, I really should be like focusing on this driving thing. And that's just kind of in my mind when I feel like we all just put like cruise control on our Christianity. Yes. But we need to wake up. We need that fresh fire. We need to be like, no, we need to really be seeking him.
Absolutely.
Well, it was a blessing to me this morning because like we were talking about the Ark of the Covenant in Sunday school, and like I really thought it was just gonna go over their heads. Like I'm like, this is gonna be a rough, like, because they literally went all the way from the army to like every single place that it went to, and I'm like, this is a lot. But the kids, like in the midst of all of it, I don't know that they got all of it. They all were like, we need to only worship God, and like they just kept repeating it the entire time. And to me, it's like they see it. Like as much as like everything else might have been a blur, it was a lot of information. They're like, I need to be seeking Christ. Like to have the faith of a child, to realize that I need to be worshiping God. I need to be serving him, like him and only him. Like not making my phone an idol, not making different things in my idol, but putting him above every single thing and loving him more than every single thing.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this month. Obviously, it's the first episode, so I don't know what we're going to talk about, but just presuming. So obviously, the book of Romans is in the Bible. And the way the Bible starts off in the First Testament is with the Jewish people. And what was unique about the Jewish people was their sacrificial system. Now, a lot of pagans had sacrifices, all that stuff. But like we know in the law that they would take literal animals and they would literally present them to the Lord. And that animal had to be no blemish, no fault, right? It had to be pure and spotless. And they would literally give up their first, best animals, their livelihood. Like that was literally how they made a living. That was their status in society. That was their food. That was their everything. And they would give that, present it to the Lord, and then he would, like, I mean this reverently, he would stamp approval right upon their religion with him. Well, it's the same thing with us. Like that is what it means to be a living sacrifice. We are bringing to him. And so, like, I say all that to say this. If you had to lay upon a physical altar all the things that you were sacrificing to him, would there be anything there for him? Like, that's really what the month's about. Like, that's what it means, nothing left. And I think when you put it in those terms, we start seeing just how much we're gypping God, just how chintzy we really are with our sacrifices. I think we're, this is a little bit funny. I shouldn't probably repeat this, but a lot of folks in our church there's a food giveaway here locally, and we get a lot of food from there. And so at some point, there must have been a goldfish factory explosion, because no exaggeration, probably have 12 boxes of goldfish right now at LifeWise, and more at home, more in the fellowship hall. And so at Christmas time, when we did a gift exchange here at the church, I don't know how many people re-gifted goldfish. It is funny, like no harm, no foul. But my point is, how many times do we do that to God? Oh, here, God, here's the goldfish I don't actually want anyways. Like, I don't even like goldfish. Here's some crackers. We give God things claiming to be sacrificial, all the while it didn't hurt us at all. Yeah. And Jesus God actually criticizes the Jewish people in the Old Testament through the prophets. He says, you are giving me your worst. You're giving me your most pathetic. You're giving me a 3-legged lamb. You're giving me a one-eared goat. You know what I mean? Like, you're giving me the stuff you don't want anyways. Yeah. And he says, I don't want it. How often do we do the same thing to God? We claim to be sacrificing, all the while giving him the things that don't matter anyways. An hour on Sunday, 10 minutes in the morning for checking a box. What if someday we get to heaven? It won't be this way. Clarity's sake, it won't be this way. Jesus paid it all. We were getting to heaven by him and him alone, period. But what if someday we get up there? And I mean, I say that to say this. The Bible does say we will give an account. So maybe we are going to get there only because of Jesus. But it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say that he would do this. We get in because of him. We get on the other side of the gates, and then he weighs our sacrifices. Yeah. If we would really live with that on our mind every day, that would really change the way we live. We would really consider things differently. How sad would it be to get up there someday and be empty-handed in what you gave to him, because you lived for you down here? You have no sacrifice. Amen. Sorry, I again hijack. Didn't mean to.
No, you brought it home. So.
You mean you're ready to go home? Okay.
Mischarged everything.
So, does anybody else have anything? No. Okay, so today's considerable quote is, God doesn't want you serving him because you are supposed to, but because you love him. Mm-hmm. And I've learned from the best, I don't know who it's by. And our featured content is I Will Follow by Chris Tomlin. So, hope you join us the rest of this month for Nothing Wasted. Like, subscribe, share, send us mail, all the things, and we will see you back next week. Bye!